Good morning. Very warm welcome to you today to this workshop on electronic product information, which has been jointly organised by the European Medicines Agency, the European Commission, and the heads of medicines agencies. And electronic product information, we're going to come to refer to it as EPI, which sort of rolls off the tongue a little bit easier than electronic product information. We'll probably switch between the two during the meeting. Now, as we're all aware, society today is evolving digitally at a rapid pace, and more technology is becoming part of our daily lives. And already this morning on the train in, I was remarking how almost every single person in my very crowded carriage was glued to their smartphone in some shape or form. And I'm sure we've all relied on our technology this morning, either to wake us up or to navigate our way here, to find our train timetables, to check in, and so on and so forth. And in the area of healthcare systems, we're also undergoing a digital transformation, and that's why we wish to take advantage of the opportunities today, to have information at the tips of our fingertips on products, just to swipe away, but also to ensure that the necessary safeguards are in place to make sure that we protect public interests. So the goal of today's workshop is to agree on key principles which will pave the way for implementation of EPI in a coordinated and harmonised manner, not just for EU centrally authorised medicines, but for all medicines also authorised at national level. And today is somewhat of a milestone for EPI because there's an awful lot of work that's been going on in the background over the last 12 months and beyond that, and most of you in the room have been very heavily involved in that. But today we'll see the kick-off of a wider public consultation on the key principles document, and that will really set the scene for developing, implementing, and using EPI in Europe in the future. It's important to say up front that EPI is one of 6 actions in the EMA action plan, which was released following the European Commission's report at the end of March 2017. And we chose to move forward first with EPI for a number of reasons. And really there was agreement between the EMA, the European Commission, the heads of medicines agencies. And we really saw the need to deliver regulatory approved information on the use and safe use of medicines to the right patient at the point of need. But we also recognize that there are an awful lot of initiatives ongoing across Europe. So it was really time to come together to coordinate efforts to allow for efficient, harmonised progress in the coming years. We do, however, recognise the need to act on the other 5 actions in the plan, and we will be doing so as soon as we have the resources to take those forward. That includes actions around content, improving content, and user testing. So, back to today, and what do we hope to achieve? Well, on the next slide, we have a summary of today's objectives. So today, as we said, we're going to work together to have broad agreement on draft EU key principles, which will then be released for public consultation at the beginning of next year. And in doing so, we're looking forward to a very open, lively discussion to discuss the opportunities, the needs and concerns identified by different stakeholder groups, the ongoing initiatives in the EU, how EPI fits within the EU and other global initiatives, and most importantly, to define the next steps. So who is joining us today for this discussion? Well, in the room, we have representatives of 23 national competent authorities, including 21 EU member states, Iceland and Norway. We have representatives of patient and consumer organizations, healthcare professional organizations, academics, pharmaceutical industry, representatives of health technology assessment bodies, payers, other non-governmental organizations, as well as the European Commission and my colleagues from EMA. We're very grateful that you can join us today for this discussion, and also we welcome those who are following today's broadcast online. Now, before we move to the program, I'd like to just cover a few practical tips. On the desks in front of you, there is some information about health and safety, and also lunchtime arrangements. And I would remind you, if you take the floor, please use the microphone. So you switch the microphone button on and release it when you finish speaking. And please also give your name and affiliation. Now to move on to today's program, which is also in front of you. I'm very pleased to start the meeting today by introducing Commissioner Andriukaitis, the European Commissioner for Health and Food Safety. Commissioner Andriukaitis could not be here with us today, but he has recorded a personal message, and I'm going to share that with you now.
Gentlemen, digital technology and innovative tools have enormous potential to empower citizens and place them at the very center of our healthcare and care systems. This includes portable diagnostic devices or sensors, but also information online. The development of electronic product information for medicines is an important element of digitalization of health and care. So I am delighted to have the opportunity to speak with you today. I am sorry that I cannot be with you in person. On that note, I want to thank the European Medicines Agency, the heads of medicines agencies, and DG Sante for co-organizing this event and for their successful collaboration on this subject. In April, the Commission launched its communication on enabling the digital transformation of health and care. It committed to concrete actions under 3 pillars. First, giving citizens better access to their health data. Second, connect and share health data for research, faster diagnosis, and better health outcomes. And third, promote person-centered care and citizens' empowerment. So I invite all of us that we maximize the enormous potential of digital tools in the area of health and healthcare. Structured electronic product information for medicines can deliver a practical, tangible benefit. For both citizens and health professionals, it facilitates access to reliable and scientifically validated information on medicines. In addition, digitalization will enable the sharing of authorized information in electronic form. This development will also help to overcome some important challenges. Digital technologies are opening a range of new independent information channels. Think of online communities that discuss patients' experiences or apps that monitor a therapy's impact on a patient's daily life. These new channels are weakening the control of marketing authorization holders and authorities over product information, potentially with dangerous results. I want to stress this point. Pharmaceutical companies and authorities need to be able to anticipate or react rapidly to these new sources so that information about medicines remains accurate and reliable. The electronic product information for medicines will address the needs of European Union citizens and current limitations of the system, including by informing patients and healthcare professionals about changes in the product information, and will also take account of the development of other initiatives in the context of e-health, like e-prescription and electronic health records. But it is important that the electronic product information is implemented throughout the EU using a common standard. This will enable the transfer of information between healthcare and care systems and across borders without unnecessary restrictions, meaning it can be accessed by patients when and where they need it. By adopting a common approach, we can avoid the unnecessary and unhelpful development of different standards in the EU. Finally, I want to clarify that this common approach will need to be built within the existing legal framework on medicinal products. The electronic product information will complement, not replace, the paper one, in order to ensure an equal availability across the EU. Ladies and gentlemen, today's workshop gathers all the important voices: patients, healthcare professionals, academics, regulators, and industry. As such, I am confident that you can make important progress towards implementing the key principles of electronic product information across the EU. Crucially, I believe that this will also set us on the welcome path to developing a global standard for electronic product information. I wish you a fruitful meeting.
Thank you. Well, we can't really share our virtual applause with Commissioner Andriukaitis, but we can send our thanks through our colleagues at the Commission to him. I think that it really sets the scene and really sets the tone for the day. So I think it's also very excellent to see the political commitment at EU level to this initiative. Now, we have a very packed agenda in front of us, so we're going to move now. I'm going to introduce the co-chairs for session 1, which is about setting the scene. On my right, I'm very pleased to introduce Dr. Olga Solomon, who's head of the unit at DG Sante, responsible for medicines, policy, authorization and monitoring. And on my left, my colleague from EMA, Alexios Skarlatos, who's head of the service responsible for labeling, review and standards. Olga and Alexios, the floor is yours. Thank you.
Thank you, Melanie, and good morning, everyone. Actually, I'm very pleased and very honored to be here today. This trip of the product information, actually, for the Commission started a few years ago with several studies and also, the report in 2017. And as Melanie said, after that, we worked for more than a year with colleagues in EMA and HMA to actually come to this day today. So I'm really happy to be opening this session and workshop. Melanie made a very nice introduction, and Commissioner Andriukaitis gave, not only the political context of this initiative, but also, he went to the practical benefits of adopting a common standard for an electronic product information. As Melanie said, it is, one of a series of recommendations and of actions that we had identified together. But today, it will be nice to concentrate on the electronic product information and actually to the key principles for developing this standard. So in this first session, we will actually look to the why electronic product information and why now. I am very privileged to be, accompanied, joined here, by very, distinguished experts, in this field. So I'm sure that we'll have a very interesting introduction. Knowing that the time we have, it is quite, I will not extend too much, further. So I will just, present my the colleagues in the panel, starting from my own colleagues in the European Commission, Kristina Kurgonaitė on my right, and Patricia Tossetti. They are coming from the pharmaceutical unit, and Patricia, from the unit dealing with digital health infrastructure. Then we have Dr. Fakhreddin Sayed, sorry for my pronunciation, on my left, coming from the Dutch National Agency, MEB, and from representing the patients from the European Patients Forum, Dr. Kaisa Immonen. And we have the consumers organization, BEUC, represented by Mrs. Sine Jansen. And to my right, we have the group, another group of important stakeholders, pharmacists, represented by Mr. Dara O'Loughlin, to my right, and industry association, FPA, the European Federation of Pharmaceutical Industries, represented by Gesine Bejeuhr. Good morning, everyone. So with that, I think that we can go just to the introduction of the session. Kristina and Patricia will introduce a bit the background, a bit the history that led us here of the Commission report and the more general way, the digital developments, that they're happening, from the political scene set, in the European Commission. I think they're doing it for you, Kristina.
Good morning. My name is Kristina Kurgonaitė, and I am from European Commission. First of all, I would like to thank you for European Medicine Agency and for Heads of Medicines Agency for fruitful and collaborative work in preparation of this workshop. there we are all today. So thank you very much. Every medicine in EU is safe, effective, and high quality. And product information plays an important element to ensure that. Commission is aware of the importance of good quality of product information. In the framework of legal requirement, there was an evaluation of the shortcomings of product information. That was achieved by performing 2 evaluation studies, and their results and conclusions were presented and consented to the member states. As the final result of that evaluation on the shortcomings of product information, Commission has adopted a report with a number identified recommendations. I think you have to go back with the slide if it's possible. Okay. Okay. So, Commission has adopted a report with an identified number of recommendations how to improve those shortcomings. The focus should be for improvement of product information for the patients rather on the healthcare professionals. Amendments of the guidelines has a potential to solve on the number of identified shortcomings, strengthen the patient's input in development of product information, explore the possibility to introduce key section in the both product information leaflets for patients and healthcare professionals. Exploration of digital formats brings new was also part of the recommendation that was assessed. It was concluded that electronic formats provides new opportunities for EU citizens, and there is a need to explore the potential of developing key principles of electronic information. And that has to be achieved within the existing boundaries of existing legislation. And that should be complementary to the paper leaflets. First of all, product information is important and the only mandatory information about the medicines for the patients. Secondly, it is essential to ensure the equal accessibility to the information of the medicines to all EU citizens and to different groups of the patients. On the other hand, the legislation does not prevent exploration, development, and implementation of electronic product information. And that would be my main message for today to set the tone for further discussion on key principles of product information. Since adoption of the Commission report, many further actions were taking place in the last year. EMA has prepared and presented the action plan with identified timelines and deliverables, where the highest priority and the implementation already were taking place already last year, started on electronic product information. Also, improving patient access to the information of the medicine is the priority for heads of medicines agencies. So to enforce the efforts working together, a joint collaboration working group was established between the European Commission, European Medicines Agency, and the heads of medicines agencies. Why it is important to work on electronic product information? That was the question I had to answer many, many times this year. First of all, as I mentioned before, product information is a primary right for the patient. So this is a public health priority to ensure different ways to have accessibility to the information of the medicine. Secondly, there is a need to coordinate all those activities that are taking place across the EU, private and public ones, and to provide a toolkit instructions for the stakeholders. Somehow it's too fast. Maybe I'm too slow. So that's my slide. And so we would like to provide instructions for our stakeholders and in order to avoid multiple incompatible activities in this sector. And finally, to ensure that the information for the patient that would be accessible via digital forms would be scientifically reliable and approved by regulatory authorities. digitalization as such is also a priority in EU. In 2015, European Commission has adopted digital single market strategy. And I'm too slow, probably, really too slow. And this spring, Commission also adopted a communication on digital health and care. So to move toward electronic product information would be the right time to do so. And how digital health transformation and health and care and how electronic product information would fit in entire EU framework on these activities will be presented by my colleague Patricia Tossetti.
Many thanks, Kristina. Good morning to everybody. As Kristina correctly said, I will just outline in 3 slides how ePI will fit in the current strategy for digitalization in the EU and in the actions that we are promoting. In 2015, the Commission decided to put digital at the core of its priorities of its strategy by making it one of its 10 priorities. And the idea is really to promote digital opportunities for businesses and citizens alike and make the single market fit for the digital age. In particular, health and care were sectors which were identified as in the most need for digitalization and where the most added value and benefits could be collected. Because of that, within health and care, 3 main priorities were identified: give citizens better access to their health data everywhere in the EU, and then connect and share health data for research, diagnosis, therapy, and better outcomes. And then they use, citizen empowerment, so the use of digital services for citizens and by citizens, and person-centered care. These 3 priorities were then the core and the backbone of a Commission recommendation, which was published this year. And the scope of this recommendation of the Commission communication on digital transformation of health and care was really to put forward and promote actions in support to these 3 priorities. In particular, secure access and exchange of health data, data sharing for better research and personalized healthcare, and empowering patients with the digital tools. These are the 3 pillars which are at the base of this communication. With regard to secure access and exchange of data, for example, we are now working on infrastructure which allow member states to exchange securely patient health data among themselves in case of unplanned care. And we are also working on a tool to allow virtual consultations among specialists for rare and complex diseases. There is also work on establishing electronic health format, electronic health record exchange format in order to increase the number and the type of data that can be exchanged among member states. These are just a few, and then I will detail this more in the next slide, but where would ePI fit in these 3 pillars? It's definitely in pillar 1. It could complement the exchange of health data, particularly e-prescription, for example. I'll tell you afterwards. But it also would fit very well in the strategy to empower patients with digital tools, because, of course, patient direct access to this information is crucial. And one of the, let's say, key actions that we are promoting and supporting as Commission in order to facilitate the cross-border exchange of health data is the e-health digital service infrastructure, which is funded through the Connecting Europe Facility program. But it's a voluntary cooperation among member states. So member states are not obliged to join, but if they're interested, they join. And this infrastructure is a network of digital gateways, national contact points for e-health, which are based in the in each member state, participating member state. Sorry, too fast. Currently, we had just a milestone, important one, last in the middle of November, when the health network of member states gave the green light for member states to start exchanging data, particularly e-prescriptions between Finland and Estonia, and patient summaries, which are like short forms of electronic health records between Czech Republic, Luxembourg. And the idea here is where API would fit. It would happily complement the work on e-prescriptions, because right now what it's possible is that the e-prescription moves from one country to the other, and the citizen can, of course, get dispensed the medicine in the other country, but the package is, of course, in the language of the host country, and the leaflet is in the language of the host country. So it would be fantastic if this process would be complemented by the possibility of having an electronic leaflet which could be printed, for example, in the language of the patient. Up to now, there are 22 countries which are joining this digital service infrastructure, but we are looking forward to reach 28 members soon. Many thanks. With that, I'm done. And if you have further questions.
Thank you. Thank you, Kristina. Thank you, Patricia. Actually, I think maybe we can keep the questions for the end of the panel discussion. I think, we are seeing the discussion now. It is about, how we expand this information into, because, we have product information that, corresponds to a certain extent, to the needs of patients and healthcare professionals. So we want to see today how we can expand these actions, to the electronic format. And, for this, I mean, Patricia brought us a bit to the wider picture. Maybe we need to see, how we can actually see this exercise within the wider spectrum of integrating this into the healthcare. And in doing so, I think that it is very important, and it was identified that, we need a multi-stakeholder approach. We need to understand the needs and the challenges as they are seen from the different stakeholders. So it will be very interesting, to hear now, to move to our, guest speakers, so because it's, starting from the regulators, I would ask Dr. Fakhreddin Sahed to give us a bit the views of the regulators. Fakhreddin, he's a medical doctor and epidemiologist. He is working he's leading the pharmacovigilance department of the Dutch National Agency for almost 13 years, and he's leading important activities with regard to patient information, and in a specific actually initiative which is called Better Use Program, about how the access to product information can be more meaningful for patient and healthcare professionals. So with this, I would like to give you the floor, Fakhreddin. Yeah.
Thank you, Chairman. Good morning, everybody. I don't have much time, only 10 minutes. And what I'm going to say is just not a presentation among other presentations. I'm going to tell you about getting the focus right today. This afternoon, we have only a couple of minutes, couple of hours, happily, to discuss the key principles. It's not enough. So if we don't have the focus right, we will end up in endless discussions about some topics that are very important in their own time and place, but maybe not today and not in this workshop. So what I'm asking is your full attention only for 10 minutes, which will help us to have a fruitful discussion this afternoon and have an end result. So let me show you what we think in the Dutch agency. We have a motto. We say, good medicines use better. And like other national agencies, we think that the patients are first. That's why we put that on the very first page of our website, as you see. Everything we do, we as regulators, companies, other stakeholders, we do it for patients. We want to give them the right information at the time that they want. But the world is changing. Patients, they don't go much often anymore to their physicians to ask for information. They just go online. They use all different media to collect information about their medication. But where they end up, they will end up in a forest of information. They don't know what to trust, and sometimes they cannot get the information at the time they need. We need to improve that. But the system that we have right now is not helping. We should improve our system. We should change something in our system. Let me show you what is not optimally functioning in our system. This is the way we work. We started it in 20th century. There's a review process. The companies and the regulators go back and forth, discussing draft product information. Till we reach to an agreement, there will be a final product information. And after that, we will have a dissemination process. That is, this information, which is states in final PI, goes to the patients or healthcare professionals. They want to search and navigate about the information they need, or sometimes other stakeholders like healthcare professionals themselves, they need to update their database and use that information. These are the data format that we currently use. During the reviewing process, we mostly use Microsoft Word in track changes. We go back and forth until it's final. Then it becomes a PDF document. Other stakeholders, during the dissemination process, they use this PDF, either as a PDF itself, it can appear on your screen of your iPhone, iPad, computer, or it's been printed. In some advanced situations, and we are currently very proud of that, we recode that PDF in other digital formats that we can share it with other databases. This process is not functioning very good because at this moment, computer programs, syntaxes, in future, artificial intelligence, they cannot use the PDF for dissemination. And any kind of recoding that we do, those of us who have been involved in it, and you definitely hear their experiences in coming sessions, know that this is not functioning properly. There is something not okay with that PDF. Let me show you what is not okay. This is the way PDF works. This is an unstructured text. Every data is in it. No computer syntax, no artificial intelligence can pick it up. What we need data structured in elements that will help not only us as regulators, not only the companies, but most importantly, it will help the process of dissemination, because if one single piece is going to be updated, it can be immediately online being available to the patient. They don't need to wait any longer. So what we need, first of all, we need to build this ePI. So this data structured in elements is the ePI that we should have. This is a complicated phrase. If I have time at the time of question and answer, I will explain to you what we mean by harmonized and structured PI enabling smart knowledge modeling. But for now, what I mean with that is that we should, first of all, we should build it up. We should make this PI. And then when we have PI, after that, during the dissemination process, all kind of applications on all kind of devices, even the devices that we don't know now. We don't know what will come in 2025. We don't know what will come in 2030. 2030. But we should be ready for that. We should be ready for those artificial intelligences. We should be ready for all those chips that maybe will be put on in our head. I don't know what will come. But we should be ready for those improvements. And then when we make the EPI, we are ready for that progress. So what should be done? This is our goal. We want to improve the dissemination process. We want to have a very easy and efficient data flow. Problem is, as I told you, with this PDF. So we need to replace the PDF with the ePI. That is a dynamic data set. Here, on this slide, I want to give you two very important take-home messages. Number one, don't have the illusion that we can make an EPI without changing anything else in the review process. Recoding is not an answer. Maybe it's an answer for now, 2019, 2020, but those softwares that we may make or those improvements will be outdated quickly, very quickly. And all those resources are wasted. We need to think about an improvement also in reviewing process. But let me stress on that. We don't improve it for ourselves. We want to improve the review process in order to achieve the EPI. And we want the EPI to improve the dissemination process. Dissemination process improvement is the goal. But in order to get there, we need EPI. In order to get to the EPI, we need an improvement in review process. But don't worry. I know some of you are sitting there sweating. You say, God, he is going to change the whole system. But there will be a transitional period. Don't worry at all. Those of us who are not ready to jump into this, we will have a transitional period. You can still use those track change Word documents. You can still use those PDF. You can still print it out. You can still recode it, whatever you want to do. There will be a transitional period. No, don't worry about that. But this is my first take-home message. Second, and even more important, is that during the discussions this afternoon, every time you think about a key principle, ask yourself, is it a key principle related to the dissemination process, or is the key principle related to EPI itself? EPI is upstream of the whole process. Reviewing and creating the EPI is the upstream of the process. Dissemination is downstream. If we correct the upstream, downstream will follow. So I understand a lot of discussions about what will happen during this dissemination process. Let me give you a clear example. The discussion about whether or not an EPI will replace a paper version. Paper version is at the dissemination process. First of all, we are not going to close any doors. Mind my words, we are not closing any doors. We are opening new possibilities. We are opening new doors. We are not closing them. So print version on paper, first of all, always possible. Secondly, that's a good discussion, but it's about dissemination process. The focus today should be on the EPI itself. So please, for every single key principle that you are going to think about or discuss about it, ask yourself, are we talking about dissemination process, or are we talking about building the EPI? That's the right focus. So I don't have much time, so let me round up. I think I got too far already. So how we should build a 21st century PI model. We should believe we are in 21st century. It's not 20th century anymore. It's a new millennia. Now we should create a common EU electronic standard. That's what it's already mentioned in key principle number 2. The pioneer group of member states, they are ready for some actions. We should start the implementation by this group, and this pioneer group will encourage other member states and stakeholders to join in future. That can be included in key principle number 9. We should establish a roadmap. The roadmap I told you to keep you calm, for the transitional period toward the full implementation of a harmonized approach of EPI across EU. That can be also included as a key principle. And of course, we need commitment by all stakeholders, and this can be coordinated, and we are already thankful to EMA, Head of Medicine Agency, and European Commission for this coordination. Dear colleagues, dear friends, EPI is not a dream anymore. It's a reality. It's a necessity. It's there. We have the technology. We just need to reach out and grab it. There are pioneer member states who want to start. There are best practices already on the table. We need to join together. We should do it together. We should not waste our resources. Our resources are not unlimited. We should come together. We should not work alone. Let's do it together. Let's do it right. Let's do it now. Thank you.
Thank you. Thank you, Fakhreddin, for putting, from the first moment, the good focus into the discussion today and making this clear distinction between the EPI and the dissemination. Thank you very much. I will give the floor now to Kaisa, who is representing the policy, who is a director of policy at the European Patients Forum. She leads the thematic area of empowerment in EPF and has a particular interest in using the patient experience as a learning tool to improve health literacy, enabling patients' empowerment as well. Kaisa, she also holds the patient co-chair for the European Medicines Agency's Patient and Consumer Working Party. Kaisa.
Thank you, Chair, and thank you for the invitation to speak today. I'll also be brief, as we have been asked to do, and I'll also be quite basic, I think, because what I want to present a little bit is, the reason why we're doing all of this. And so I think today we should keep in mind always the objective of what we are aiming for. Technology is but a tool for reaching certain objectives. What is the matter today is that patients want and need better information on the medicines that we take. And the package information leaflet is actually a very important source of information. We need the information in order to use the medicine safely, in order to use it correctly, to have proper adherence and concordance with the treatment plan, for effective self-management, and of course, self-management is a vital aspect of patient empowerment, and of course also for monitoring of possible adverse reactions. And sometimes this is the only information people have, especially when we use over-the-counter medicines. And I think that the next speaker from BEUC is going to talk more about the consumer experience. But in any case, it's an important complement to information we get from healthcare professionals. And often we as patients need to go back to information later on. But the problem is at the moment that many people, if they read the package leaflet in the first place, then just throw it away and don't revisit it later. That's one of the problems. And the other problem is that the information on the patient leaflet, if it's in paper form, is static. It doesn't change. And I'll come back to it in a minute. I want to emphasize the role of health literacy because understanding what a medicine's information leaflet says is a standard question when people are asked about health literacy. And actually the shortcomings of the leaflet have been known for a very long time. At least since 2005, we have been making incremental improvements to the template and to the information. There's more patient review now. It's still not perfect. And it's actually striking. I mean, the European Health Literacy Survey is a few years old now, but it did find that almost 30% of people surveyed found it difficult to understand the package information leaflet. And actually, this is interestingly the most diverse item in the European survey, which indicates that there are quite a big differences between different countries in, I mean, I'm speculating here, but in the quality of the leaflets or in the quality of health literacy generally, I don't know. But for some reason, Germans found it most difficult to read the package information leaflets, whereas the Dutch were the most adept at this. But this is important, and health literacy is not only about words, it's also about the design of the document. It's also about numbers. For example, when communicating benefit and risk, it's all about numbers. So the leaflet should be intelligible and easy for people of all levels with health literacy. I think that's what I wanted to say. And this is just to show you some graphs that show that people look for information online. And one of the main topics that they look for is information on medicines. This is from a Eurobarometer on digital health literacy, and it shows that a lot of people think they can distinguish high from low quality information online, but almost 20% think they cannot. And this is also an important issue to keep in mind. When we think of electronic product information, it's the good information that should always come out on top in people's searches, and currently it's not the case. So we need an online source that is reliable, trusted, evidence-based, and that people will find easily. Now for the opportunities that we see in EPIs. Of course, its accessibility, I think, is a major advantage. It's there when and where you want and in the language you want. I'm a Finnish native speaker and I'm fluent in English, but I live in Belgium and I'm not fluent in the Belgian national languages. One of the prescription medicines I use, I think it appears to have been nationally authorized because I'm not able to find the package leaflet in English anywhere. I've been looking for it. Now, the Belgian Medicines Authority has it. It's there for everyone, but it's in French, Dutch, and German. So I read the French and I read the German, but I would love it if I could have it in English or, I'm not expecting Finnish, but English would be great. So languages, accessibility when you want. And I think there are also opportunities for the design because with an electronic template, this is more flexible. You're not bound to the piece of paper that needs to fit into a package. And of course, I can see there are some opportunities for adapting the ePI to people with disabilities. And having it in portable format, and I think this is an important point, everything should be mobile gadget friendly because people now have everything on their mobiles and they look at their mobiles. It's true that not everyone in Europe has access to a computer with internet, but more people, I dare say, have mobile phones, have smartphones. So this is actually also an equity of access issue to make it mobile friendly. And of course, different functionalities. There could be something like search function, hover glossaries to explain certain terms. There could be eventually visuals or even video to explain the use of a medical device, for example, an asthma inhaler and so on. And one important point that I see where this can be very helpful is updating the information. When there's a change to the package leaflet, how will people know? Currently, they don't, basically. I'm also a user of one medicine that is part of the class of medicines reviewed recently by PRAC, fluoroquinolone. And I have it at home for self-care, agreed with my healthcare professional. And if, let's say, if I wasn't involved in EMA, I wouldn't know that the safety information on these products has changed. I wouldn't know to actually look for this information. So one of the opportunities I see is that you could eventually be alerted that information on the medicine you're using has changed. And there are a few challenges we should keep in mind. I've already mentioned the mobile friendliness. And ideally, we should have a European level source. I mean, it would be great to have a one-stop shop for this information. One of the important issues is that it should be trusted. So we see a role for the public authorities and governments in leading this process. There is a role for industry, certainly. Industry is also right now the source of the information we have, and they could certainly provide helpful information. But from our perspective, the whole process needs to be led by public authorities in order to have the trust and confidence of the people. And there is also still questions about improving the content of the pill generally and improving patient involvement in the process. So I think this probably we have an opportunity here, and along the way we will identify some things that need to be improved, in different aspects need to be improved, and it will sort of lead us to change. I don't know if you understand what I mean, but I think if we look at the electronic format itself, it will show us other things that can be improved in the process. So just to conclude, I think I said digital technology is a tool. It's not an end in itself. How good it is depends on what we do with it, and certainly the content of the pill still needs improving. But I think it's a question of glass half empty or half full. I chose to see this as glass half full. There's a lot of opportunities here, and as long as the solutions we develop are patient and person-centered, are equitable and trusted by people, are easily accessible and user-friendly, and are also effectively communicated so that people know that there are new things available, we will be doing all right. So we should keep in mind the basic aim, and today perhaps we should figure out what matters most, because that's what matters most. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Kasia, for giving us this perspective of the patients, and also, with the positive, half full, perspective, I will give the floor to Gesine Jensen, who will talk us through, the needs of the consumers. Gesine has a special interest and expertise in defending exactly and promoting the patients' rights. On a daily basis, is representing consumer and patients in numerous committees in the field of pharmaceuticals. She, both at national and EU level. She worked 11 years for consumer health policies, and before that 6 years for health policy for elderly, which are very important for the discussion today. Gesine, the floor is yours. Thank you.
And thank you very much for this opportunity as well. And let me start with just cheering. I would like to do a wave throughout the whole panel and say that we're so pleased that patient information is a prioritization for EMA as well, and as for the Commission. It's so very important. And yeah, I think we don't need to say more than that, because everybody knows it's a problem. And we're also cheering about the principles that it should be unbiased, especially unbiased and regulator approved. We really we really think that's a very important issue to keep in mind. So just to say that we're just so happy about the whole process, that we're actually working on this, because we know there is an information gap and somebody needs to do something. And also, we also say, of course, the whole digitalization process, we support that very much, because it is an important tool. But as Kaisa said, it is just a tool. And we have looked into patient information for years and years, and especially our Portuguese organization have made a very good project where they looked at the patient leaflet and did a lot of testing, what works, what doesn't work. And some of it, I guess, for this group may sound very common sense, but it's the whole idea that if you want to understand something, don't put it in small letters, have good subtitles, have good titles and bullet points, and of course, especially the posology. How long are you going to take the medicine? I mean, the very important information needs to be very clear, and of course, some text in black color. And I just Melanie, when you did your presentation, even you said, so why are we here? The whole idea of actually asking questions, why am I going to read this? It sounds common sense, but that's just a good idea. And it's the same whether it's online or it's on a written format. So I think some of our findings from years and years, we'd like to share them even further with the group. But, what's happening here? Yeah. Before going digital, we need to answer some questions. It's very, very important that we are very sure who's going to host the information, who is actually having the completely. Oh God, who's in control of the information? That's very, very important that we know that for sure. And it's also very important how do the national agencies support this, and how can they actually do the approval of the information. Another thing we think it's a bit difficult is the personalization. How are we going to do that? Because I think that's very ambitious. And one huge problem I also will touch on a little bit later is can we be sure that the electronic version actually will improve the health literacy? Do we know this for sure, and how do we actually do it? And also another question is, if we spend too much time on this, I fully agree on the Dutch speaker saying that you can. Sorry, I think it's a very good idea that if we have structured information, of course the dissemination will be easier. But are we actually getting there? Hopefully, we'll see. So, just to be sure that BEUC position is that we really, really have to be sure, do we solve the problem in the right way? Does these tools actually improve accessibility? And are we really sure that the source of information is unbiased? We're very, very we know that promotional information is a huge problem and will not lead to the right pill for the right patient at the right time. And then, as Kaisa also said, the whole health inequality is so important to touch upon. Are we sure we're doing this in the right way? And also, are we solving the problem for those who really, really need it? The elderly, the disempowered, the disengaged. So we need to focus on the elderly, and that's not because I work at the elderly organization, but that's also a consumer issue. Anyway, so just to finalize a little retrogressive slide at the end, and a little Danish class. Selv ikke skinnet før bjørnen er skudt. We use this a lot. We have numerous IT projects on a Danish level, which is flunked, and we spent so much time on technology that didn't work, that didn't solve a problem. So just to be sure that we're not doing a huge effort which nobody will read and will not improve health literacy and patient safety. So thank you again.
Thank you, Sina. Actually, indeed, when you put a new initiative on table, it is good to put critical questions from the beginning. So thank you for putting them on. I'm sure that they will be addressed also by questions and during the day. So with this, I would like to give the floor to Dara O'Loughlin, who is actually going to give us the views of the pharmacists. Dara is a community pharmacist, also Secretary General of the Irish Pharmacy Union, which is the professional representative and leadership organization for community pharmacists in Ireland. And Dara has been also the former president of the PGEU. Dara, the floor is yours. Thank you.
Thank you very much for the introduction, and thank you for the invitation to be here. As we've heard, I'm here to represent the perspective of a community pharmacist in the giving of information to patients which is a key part of what we do. There are 400,000 community pharmacists working across the European Union, approximately 150,000 pharmacies, and we host 46 million visits per day into a pharmacy somewhere in Europe. Our perspective on the existing situation very much reflects what we have already heard from the consumers and from the Patients Forum, which is that the existing information is very important. People use it, patients and consumers use it as a complement to the information that they get from a healthcare professional. Healthcare professionals today are no longer the gatekeepers of health-related and medicines-related information. We're the guide. We have to accept that patients get information from us and they also get information elsewhere. Part of our role is to help them navigate that information and recognize the correct information, and as well as to provide information. It's important for patients to be able to access objective and neutral information and to be able to access that where and when they need it. The current patient information leaflet's deficits or its flaws have already been outlined. A lot of patients can't understand it. They don't find it accessible. They don't find the language easy to understand. They find the layout confusing. So there are huge opportunities there in the electronic patient information to improve on those flaws rather than simply digitizing an existing flawed approach. Breaking down the information in the SMPC or the PIL into its component parts, as the first speaker said, is crucial. That allows it to be integrated into software systems being used by healthcare professionals, as well as into databases accessible by patients, so people can find what they need in a format that they can use regardless of how they are accessing the information. Also, it allows for opportunities to alert healthcare professionals and for them to alert their patients. As we have heard, currently when the safety information on any medicine changes or is updated, there is no way of alerting healthcare professionals other than to write to them. But these alerts can be integrated into software systems and can be integrated into smart devices so that patients and consumers, as well as healthcare professionals, can get the information they need when they need it. I'm not going to dwell for too long on any points that have already been made. It is enough for me to say that pharmacists agree with the key principles that have already been drafted and are for discussion today. We are in agreement with what has been said so far this morning, that the patient information leaflet is a vital source of information for patients now, but we can improve on that. We can improve on the format. We can improve on the readability. We can focus on delivering the information in the way that patients understand it. We can see every day that information regarding commercial products and commercial services is presented in a very accessible, readable, eye-catching way that draws us in. If we are honest with ourselves, when we idly surf the internet, we don't read professional websites, we don't read statutory information. We read what catches the eye and we absorb what is easily absorbed. We need to shift our patient information presentation into that mindset so that people will be attracted to it and will find it easy to read and easy to absorb, that not only will they be able to read it, but they'll want to read it. Even, if you like, the patients who think they don't want to read it, the ones who throw the leaflet in the bin, should be captured by presenting the information in a more digital-friendly way, in their language, in a way that accommodates disabilities or difficulties that they have in accessing the current information, whether that's through larger fonts, whether that's through audible formats, whether that's through graphic formats, whether it's through presenting it in any language we think that a potential patient or user of the medicine might need it in. I have some examples here of what electronic alerts and electronic risk minimization information can look like. In the top left-hand corner is an interaction alert that flashes up on a pharmacy computer system. This is a standard measure in pharmacies all across the EU. When we dispense a medicine, if there is likely to be an interaction with another medicine the patient is using, we get an alert flashing up. So the technology exists to use information when the information is in the technology in the right format. We can also see in electronic risk minimization communication, that's an example from another country that shows how specific pharmacovigilance information can flash up on a healthcare professional system so that they're alerted to the fact that there is new information to be given to the patient, or indeed information to be gotten from the patient about their experience of using the medicine. In the bottom right-hand corner, we see the kinds of graphic images that are used by a public information website in the Netherlands, which is about making information more attractive and more easily available to people who are not attracted by lists of words or of dense text on finely printed leaflets. An adapted electronic format is one that uses the information in a codified form as opposed to a flat PDF form. This is an example from Spain, where we can see, if we look in the medicines information website, we've got the image of the product, we've got the name and the form of the product, the active ingredient, and then within that, we've got access to information for healthcare professionals. We've got access to information for patients, so patients can see some of the key warning and information and advice messages relating to their medicine. Healthcare professionals have access to the SMPC in a disaggregated format, so they can immediately access the pieces of the SMPC that they want to read at the time. So to summarize, the pharmacy and the pharmacist's position very much accords with the draft principles that have been set out and with the views already put forward this morning, which is that electronic product information can increase access, can increase engagement if it's made more user-friendly and more readable than the current format. That there is an opportunity in EPI to meet patient needs that are not currently met adequately by providing information in different formats in different languages. It provides an opportunity to improve our risk minimization communications to patients and to healthcare professionals, so that somebody who's using a quinolone antibiotic can be made aware of a change in the safety information, so that somebody who's using valproate can be alerted to the heightened risk that is associated with pregnancy, or any of the other safety alerts and information improvements that have come about. EU-wide standards to ensure harmonized access is something I think we all agree on, and one of our early presenters mentioned it, that this is something which should be done on an EU-wide basis, so that no matter where an EU citizen moves within the Union, they'll know where to get the information and they'll understand the format that the information is being delivered in, and they'll have access to it in their own language. That very much finishes my presentation. I have rushed through it because I had very little to say that hadn't already been said, and there's a limit to how often anybody wants to hear the same message in one morning. Thank you.
Thank you, Dara, for giving us this valuable perspective, actually, for the patients, but how do you receive it, as pharmacists and as advisors, from the community pharmacists? Thank you. So our last but not least, our speaker from industry, from FPA, Gesine Bejeuhr, she is currently working for VFA, the German Association of Research-Based Pharmaceutical Companies, where she coordinates several expert groups in the area of drug regulatory affairs, quality and environment, with focus on patient and healthcare professional-friendly product information. So, Gesine, the floor is yours.
Thank you very much for the introduction, and thank you very much for organizing this workshop, because we have been waiting for this workshop for a very long time, and finally, thank you, EMA, for this excellent preparation, because I think it works all very well. So our initiative of the three European associations works on how to deliver improved product information. And if I talk now about product information, I don't, I mean the product information that is contained in the package leaflets. So I really want to emphasize here that also the industry speaks about the regulator-approved non-commercial information when we speak about electronic product information. And this is what we want to deliver: up-to-date and accurate, real time. So, and we had already several, as my speakers before me already said, we had already some advantages of this. And if we ask why electronic product information now, I think it's really the time to get the patients up to something that is user-friendly and easy to navigate, and where we can also then apply many tools to support patients who cannot read the text on the paper. So, however, and it has been emphasized, the transfer from paper to the digital dissemination is only the first step. So we need to do more there. And the content needs to be understandable, and it needs to have it needs to be appropriate to the level of literacy. So what we can do, and we have already many examples here. If you look at the regulator-approved materials that are already there, we could use, for example, the summary of public assessment reports that are available at EMA website, and they are in lay language, and they provide already very good information in addition to the package leaflet. And we have educational material, and as it was already said, all these documents should be combined so that we have one source of information that helps patients and citizens to find this information. So, and I'm really convinced that this better information, including the electronic product information for medicines, can support citizens to manage their everyday health decisions. And if we have better information, people can then make better decisions throughout the whole cycle of their treatment, already in prevention, for the acknowledgement and asking questions, for the better understanding why I am taking a medicine, because this is very important. We speak often about safety, but what we hear from the discussions with patients is that they want to understand, why should I take this medicine? And so we think this is equally important here. And of course, if we have a good treatment, then we might not use the hospital so often. Of course, for the implementation of this electronic product information, we need to consider, and this has been already said, the rapidly evolving technical environment. I mean, we were speaking today about mobile phones, but we know already that we have certain bots which you speak to. So you use new tools where you don't type anything anymore, where you just communicate with your electronic device, and who knows what next. So as the MEB speaker rightly said, there might be chips in our head sooner than we expected. So, but the EU ePI system needs to fulfill several technical requirements, and I don't want to go into these details now because we will have time in the third session to speak about all these techniques. But what is important is we can already begin to streamline our processes because we have already things that we can use at hand. So we have the QOD template, and if we start to build up the boxes for the QOD template in the way how as the MEB speaker was picturing it so very nicely, then we could start and use the QOD template as a structured style guide. And we can also gain experience in areas with paperless packages, for example, in hospitals and for health professional administered medicines like vaccines or other injectables. Because here, patients often don't get the paper leaflet at all. So we could add here information for patients electronically. And we have already, in some countries, existing infrastructures. And to be cost effective and to be quick, we should really look how we could use all these available infrastructure. So we need to be sustainable, and it has been already said that many people look already for information on the internet, and so we should really start and have a look at the pioneers, as it was said, and start with these pioneers. I just listed a few here. We have the Spanish agency, but we have several public-private partnerships here. We have FAS in Sweden, we have Felleskatalogen in Norway, Rote Liste in Germany, EMC or Pharmadati, to name some of them. And excuse me if I left your initiative out here. But you see, it's a variety of infrastructure that we have there, and we need to integrate these sources because we need to be more efficient and we need to reduce the data redundancy that we have at the moment, and we need to build on these joint initiatives so that we get a quick access here. And this could also then include pharmacovigilance initiatives, which could lead to more interactive situations where the patient could report on the internet and get then some information back. So there are projects ongoing in this way. So, and it was already said here that we have already at present many different commercial and other providers, and they offer data on the internet that is quite attractive. So what we need to do to safeguard correct and safe use of medicines through accurate, up-to-date EPI, what we want to have here, our solution must offer advanced technology to be competitive and attract people. So if it's something where you have to click 7 times, no one will go. After the second or third click, people will go away. So we need to be really here at fingertip. And if we want to do this, we need a stepwise approach, but we need a stepwise approach with a clear roadmap and clear timelines. Because if we have this, we need to ensure that all citizens get access to good information and better information as soon as possible. So just to give you a flavor of what might be the future of the label, so once the e-health strategy is setting the scene, so then we will have future labels that won't look at all like we know them today. So we will have, this is just the try of illustration you will hear more later in the afternoon. So we will be able to have artificial intelligence that draws all the information from now isolated sources and will allow then to personalize this information. So, but of course we need to see that this artificial intelligence then is also reliable and doesn't leave out any important message. So to conclude, what we see is, in our view, the electronic product information can support citizens in their everyday healthcare experience, and we can support the empowerment through increased health literacy here. And therefore, the electronic product information should be one of the telematics priorities, and we should shape our regulatory framework to enable this interoperable digital innovations, as it was already emphasized by MEB. And also, it needs to be sustainable. We need really to look into our technical standards so that we are competitive in this rapidly transforming environment. And all of this should be then taken in a multi-stakeholder approach. We should leverage the strengths of each group and really look into the involvement of all stakeholders very early on, or for example, already in the standard and guideline development and also in the decision-making and other processes. And just to thank you again for this, because I think this workshop is a great start, and we look forward to continuous interactions with you in this. And with this, I thank you very much.
Thank you very much, Gesine. You're very important contributors, parties, in the system of developing the product information. And, you spoke about competitive technology, which is very important to keep in mind for our discussion today. I think we are doing very well with time, so we have time for questions and answers for our panelists. So I would like, yes, please.
Good morning, everybody. I'm Stefan Ammann, a hospital pharmacist working in Munich, and I'm here on behalf of EHP, the European Association of Hospital Pharmacists. We as hospital pharmacists support the idea of an electronic patient information, and especially in hospitals, we often see patients that have no readable information or no written information. So it can also be a very interesting tool for patients in hospitals. We also strongly support, and I'm really thankful to the Dutch guys for the data structured in elements, because it's mentioned in the paper that e-prescribing should interact, the EPI should interact with e-prescribing with electronic patient files, also for drug interaction checks. So it's very important that the information is readable. One point that I'm missing in the discussion, and I was wondering whether Kaisa or Gesine would focus on that point, is that we're talking about a lot of opportunities, but we also should have some risks in focus. So if we have a tunnel for information going to the patient, there's also a tunnel of information going back. And I think we should very carefully look on this and discuss how we ensure the patient's privacy in this very helpful and needed development. Thank you very much.
Thank you very much. And I strongly support the privacy of the patients in all kind of ways. And I think it's very important to work on these issues as well. And one thing I didn't touch upon was the opportunity to report side effects or pharmacovigilance. I think it's in the principle, so it has been touched upon, but I could have emphasized it in my talk as well. I think it's very important. And I think, of course, this is where the tools could be very good, and especially if you could report side effects on your telephone, that would be very good, because we know that there's a massive underreporting on side effects, and I think we are all interested in having this information from the people who are actually consuming the medicines. So thank you very much for giving me this opportunity.
Yes, thank you for the question. I think I totally agree with Sina on the reporting of the side effects. The interactivity I see is as one of the great opportunities for going digital. I think it was on my slides, but maybe I didn't say it. And regarding privacy, I didn't touch on it, but basically our position is that privacy should be built into the design. So we should not have to worry about that. We should focus on the content, but of course we expect that these considerations are taken into account when designing the solutions.
Thank you for the important point. I see, the lady there having.
Viorica Cursaru, Pain Alliance Europe. I have two questions, one for Mr. Syed Farid and one for the representatives of the Commission, but the ladies first. This infrastructure for the cross-border exchange of health data, it is highly commendable. However, from the perspective of the patients and within the context of this cross-border, it might not be fully effective and result-based management from the perspective of the patient unless some of the provisions of the cross-border healthcare will be removed, will be updated, will be changed. And I refer particularly to the reimbursement. Is the Commission going, in this particular context, going to revise the cross-border healthcare reimbursement? And question for Mr. Faradi Sayed. You were talking about pioneer member states. Do you know which are the member states already? And most importantly, what's the purpose of having a pioneering process for as long as this is going to become mandatory for at the European level for all member states? Thank you.
Thank you for the question. Shall I start from Patricia and then?
With regard to the possibility of revising the cross-border healthcare directive, we currently have no plans. And the problem with the reimbursement is that this is a national competence according to the treaties. So we have a very limited leeway in touching this point. We have been trying recently with the legislative proposal for a regulation on health technology assessment, and we are not having an easy life with getting that approved. So reimbursement is a member state competence, and it's very difficult for the Commission to intervene in this.
Thank you for your question. Regarding which countries are pioneers, I don't dare to name because I'm sure I will miss some countries and I don't want to offend anybody. Well, we in Netherlands, we are busy with it. Spain is busy with it. Sweden, Norway, and some other countries as well. I don't go on and on. But the reason that we need to have these pioneers start because we have the knowledge, we have the infrastructure, we have the motivation, and if we wait too long, those pioneers will start some projects in national level. And when the time comes that something European should be done, then it could be already a bit late because then the pioneer says, well, I spent so much resources to build it. It's good enough for me. So why I should adapt again and spend again so much time? We have our resources. We should put our resources together. We should not go in parallel. Each country has its own resources. And there are different projects that they are aiming to the same thing. So we need to collaborate. And since EMA is busy with moving to the Netherlands, and I understand that there are technical and let's say logistical problems to go too quick. And well, I'm going to say that, well, we do want that EMA and European Commission helps us to bind together. But the effort, the work, the knowledge, the good practices which are already on the table, they are coming from pioneers. And then we should not wait until someone says, okay, I have a plan, join me. We should join each other. We should start. And then we should be coordinated by EMA. But then because the resources are limited, we should not spend the resources separately. We should spend it together on the same direction.
I think this sounds to me as a very good description of any good European project, I would say, where actually you start from best practices, bring everyone together, and then you discuss a way forward that it is acceptable and possible for everyone. I saw a question from Peter as well, somewhere. Yeah.
Thank you very much. Peter Bachmann from the Federal Institute for Drugs and Medical Devices in Germany. I would fully echo what the comment from my colleague from the Netherlands. And as you may have heard, Germany was not mentioned as one of the pioneer states. But we think also pioneer is a little misleading because we know the principle will work. And in Germany, we simply wait for a European standard to go on because we can start. We will have the resources, but I think it's not the right way to use the resources, develop an own German standard, which will not fit to the standard in the Netherlands, the standard in Spain. So currently we are waiting for a European standard to start the project. Having said this, and please don't regard this as a threat, we will not be able to wait for a long, long, long time because the public pressure is high.
Thank you, Peter. Yes, I'll take one more question.
My name is Georg Lang, and I'm from the German Electronic Packet Information Leaflet Consortium. I fully agree to what has been said in terms to the urgency of a need for really an electronic standard. And I think what at least I heard a bit from your presentation, that it looked a little bit as if we were aiming for a centralized approach. And I'd like to differentiate a little bit the centralized approach to from a common European approach in terms of really setting up a standard. So my understanding would be that the electronic standard not necessarily means that the approved package information leaflet has to come out of the EMA or from a centralized European organization. It's really about bringing the resources together and working towards common standards, as we are doing that in a lot of other areas in the regulatory field. And I think to achieve that, looking at the public pressure we are having, I think from my personal perspective, it would be well advised to look at the resources we are having, what is already there, agree on a standard, and then think that we can have that implemented in the member states.
Totally agree. So I didn't really, well, for some parts, like for centrally authorized products, well, it will be centralized, but one doesn't exclude the other. And the thing is that we should know what the other party does. We should make a common standard to be able to join together, not making things that again in later stage in some parts conflict with each other, and then it will be really a waste of resources.
I'm sorry, I don't think we have time for more questions, but I think we have quite a good convergence of the views, of the usefulness of the meeting today. I think, it is the right time and the right moment to discuss, these issues, and actually, I think we seem to all agree, about this need for, sharing what it is, common practice and what it exists already in order to build on that, But I think I will give the floor to Alexios so that he can, conclude this session.
Thank you, Olga. So I will attempt to summarize the key points of the things we heard from the speakers. So indeed, the session served its purpose to actually set the scene. A presentation with conviction from the Netherlands that definitely the focus of today's discussion is how to end up with a structured product information to finally agree and on the principles that will lead us to select the standards. Very key questions were raised, especially about the control of information, who is authorizing, comments about technology used EPI as a tool and not as an end. And of course, there are some concerns of whether these technical solutions will really help the weakest links in the system, for example, the elderly. The content, of course, it's also a very important issue. We heard about, it's not only about text, it's also about the design. And I would like also to emphasize that we are also going to tackle the content in terms of template and guideline. This is also part of the Commission's report recommendations, which will come at the second phase. But here, of course, the focus is the electronic standard. And we really need a clear roadmap and clear timelines that it's very evident from what we heard. And finally, the need to work together to achieve a sustainable solution and keep up with all the technological evolution. And it's very important that most of the key elements that were raised during the presentations, I think, will be the focus of the discussion, especially in session 3. So I guess we've done quite well with the time, and we can now go for coffee break, Melanie.